Look him up, Twitter, Instagram, anything you need to do for anything, man. He could talk to you about boxing. He could talk to you about wrestling. The man's knowledgeable and knows his sport. So again, it's Mike Rether here on live with Carlos Toro. How you doing today, Carlos?
Doing pretty good. It's been a busy day already, as you are well aware of that.
Yep,
But it just means that boxing is back, and we're finally getting the ball rolling for 2021.
definitely. And as you said, yeah, it's been busy. I mean, we've been up while you on your side it was 1 o'clock, but for me it was 10 a.m. for the Angelo Leo and Stephen Fulton press conference. But it's fine. We gotta, as you said, boxing is back and starting the 23rd of January, we're gonna have about 2 straight months of every weekend, really, really solid fights coming up. So I'm glad to see that. I'm happy we got that coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we got on Friday Eddie Hearn announcing
A
a
lot.
number of fights for
Yep.
matchroom boxing, and based on what I'm hearing, a lot of those fights really, really good and really interesting. So, I mean, the current slate is great, and it's gonna get even better.
Yeah, and what I like that I've heard is the cross promotional matchups between Top Rank and Matchroom if they get that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight done for the summer, which I'm intrigued because I started looking through the rosters of each promotion and thinking who can they match up that would make sense for that fight card.
Yeah, that is a fight that I've been really looking forward to the most. Obviously, boxing politics and the behind the scenes stuff will play a major role in getting that fight happen. From the mandatories to the broadcasters, obviously the Zone, ESPN, not exactly two platforms that have the same model.
Yep.
So and that's an interesting fight, and it's a really interesting story to follow behind the scenes, mainly because of everything that could is potentially derail it. And if you ask me, I still am in the school of I gotta know everything
Hmm.
just so I can actually believe that it's actually going to happen. Because we've seen, you know how it is. Sometimes fights are in the works, and we kind of already assume that it's happening, and then turns out it just doesn't happen and it falls through.
Exactly, and specifically in boxing with the big fights that always seems to happen. I mean,
Mhm.
as we all know, we waited for Mayweather and Pacquiao for so long from its original date of 2010. I believe in March is when they had originally signed for it
Mhm.
or agreed to it, and we didn't get it till 2015. We're still waiting on Crawford and Spence. As we all love to talk about in the chat, um, Juan Manuel Lopez and Yuriorkis Gamboa, that over
Oh man,
marinated. So
no man, it's gotten to the point where the marinade is just spoiled and rotten at this point. Just throw it out into the garbage.
yeah, but that's the thing we've in boxing. It's
Mhm.
something that we're more. Oh well, if it happens, cool, but we're not gonna hold our breath. And it's bad that it's at that point, but it's just at the point that us involved in the sport and fans and everybody, we kind of expect the worst before we actually get something for it. So as you said,
Yeah,
it's
and not
it's
just that, it's the issue of COVID. COVID is
yep,
now another thing that we all have to worry about. How many
yeah,
how many big fights, how many great fights we've missed because of COVID-19. I mean, now you Inoue John Real Casimero got camped
yeah,
because of COVID. Angelo Leo Stephen Fulton, we were going to have that at last August, and that got delayed
yep,
because Stephen Fulton got COVID days
yep.
before the fight happened. I'm glad we're having it in January, but that was a fight that could
Okay.
easily no longer happen
Yep.
because of COVID.
And as you mentioned that just in December, Nonito Donaire lost his opportunity for another title fight because of COVID and all that situation going down there. Many fights, uh, so many over the summer. Jamal Herring a couple times. The list goes on and on. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
COVID is something that we can't control. So if it happens to one of the fighters, it's kind of like, hey, just wait. And you mentioned Angelo Leo, and mentioned because as Stephen Fulton mentioned, he thought that was my one opportunity. That's it. It's done.
Mhm.
He was really worried. He was scared. As he mentioned, he cried because he thought that was it. So it's something that's affecting the sport in ways that we would hope it would never happen, but it's what's going on.
And and not just affecting the fighter, but the people around those fighters. I mean, right before we got onto this show, I was interviewing Mike Williams, who's going to be fighting January 20 on Showtime. His trainer tested positive for COVID, and Michael was telling me that his trainer lost like something like 30 pounds in the span of 2 weeks after he got COVID. So it's not just the fighters, but just the people all from all different levels in boxing. I mean, and how many guys have we lost in 2020 strictly because of COVID? Like way too many. Like, it's a sobering reminder that 2021 is a new year, but COVID is still here. It's still gonna be affecting the sport, maybe even beyond 2021.
Yeah, it's something that with the vaccines and everything, hopefully we could slow it down, but we still don't know the full extent of damages that it could give to us because it's still relatively new. I mean, last year, we hit the summer, late summer, and people thought, oh, it's slowing down, and it's raged back up. And as you said, we lost so many people to it that, I mean, some yes older, but some younger and that looked healthy, and it didn't seem like it was going to affect it so bad as it did. And now we're just like, oh shit, there it goes. And now here we go again. As you mentioned, his trainer lost that weight. We had a couple people that were actually involved in the promotions, in fights, trainers as well, that lost their life due to COVID. So it's something that, again, no control, and we have to live with until hopefully we can eradicate it at some point, hopefully in the future or soon if we can.
Yeah, not exactly holding my breath out for COVID to be resolved within the first half of 2021, but hopefully we get to some level of normalcy, throughout the year, whether it be once we hit the fall or when we get to the winter. I just want things to start getting normal again, which is now starting to be harder to remember what pre-COVID days looked like.
Oh man, I used to go to a good number of fights throughout the year or just events, and the other day I actually sat there, and it's been about a year and a half for me for boxing, and in the last MMA event I did, it's about to be a year in February, and it just, like, people tell me if they, some of the fights have had fans and press, if I would go and risk it, and I'm like, man, I think I might, because I need that normalcy, like that feel of being at a fight. But then I think about it, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to risk it. It's just, I don't know. But it's been so long that, it's how you said, we haven't had it in so long that it's kind of like, damn, what was normal? What did we used to do? And that's really where we are.
Yeah, I mean, the last fight I covered, as media inside the venue was Terrence Crawford, Amir Khan, which feels like now like it took place 5 years ago instead of... I think it was April 2019.
Yeah.
I think it was April 2019 that fight took place at Madison Square Garden. That was the last fight I covered, and man, we're almost 2 years. We're about, I think, 21 months since that fight happened. It's felt like 210 months.
Yeah, and the last one I did was Ray Vargas to Mickey Kameda at the...
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah, in StubHub back in July of 2019. So that one's been a while, and that one I remember it more for being able to talk to a lot of fighters and media people after the fight. The fights were good. Diego De Loya was on there, Ronnie Rios, and all that. But it was after I ran into Gilberto Ramirez, Jojo Diaz, Daniel Roman, all these people that were there. And now it's like, man, it's really been almost 2 years. Like, if I don't get to one soon, it's going to be 2 years like that. So it's crazy to think about, but someone just mentioned Santea Media. Robert Garcia tested positive, and back and forth because of when Virgil Ortiz was originally going to fight. So just like that, different trainers, fighters. I believe
Eddie Hearn tested positive for COVID.
Eddie Hearn. Was it Shakur Stevenson or Michaela Mayer's trainer, right, as well?
I believe Michaela tested positive
There
for
you go.
COVID,
Yeah, she did.
although Michaela tested positive for COVID. At least that's what the test
Yeah,
is said. I know there was some thought that it may have been a false positive,
yeah,
but regardless, you can't just treat everything as oh, it's a false positive. I'm feeling fine.
yeah,
It hits everyone differently.
yeah. And it was the same with Jamel Herring. The first time he tested positive, the second
Mm.
time it was a false positive because he did do the antibody test, and it did show that the virus was shedded, it was dormant, but that he still had variations or whatever in it. So it caused him to miss his second defense again, but then he finally got the fight done. So yeah, and that's the other thing about COVID is you gotta take it to be sure you're clear. But we've had so many as well, the false positives. So many people are missing out on something that could possibly be wrong. Like it could be that there's not sick
Mhm.
at all, but they gotta follow the rules and the protocols because they gotta be safe. So definitely something that's tough to be dealing with right now.
Yeah, I mean, and look, even though it sucks, these fighters and these athletes, they have to follow the protocols, or else it's just gonna mess everything up. I mean, how many athletes, outside of boxing, have pretty much been breaking their respective leagues' protocols and just
Yep.
messing everything up? I mean, I think Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints was, kind of messed a lot of things up for his team because I think he went out partying without a mask, and
Yeah.
it's it's the new reality that we live in. It's not just oh, I feel fine, so I'm okay. It's, well, other people could also be affected even though you're feeling fine. You could very much well be asymptomatic and not even realize you have COVID. You go out and then boom, that's how it spreads even more.
Exactly. And that's the biggest concern to most people is we would feel like we're okay, but we may not be, but we could give it to somebody else and risk their life, to be honest. So yeah, and Abraham Gonzalez saying, "Look at you, look all dressed up, man."
well, we had a Showtime press conference, then an interview with Mike Gwen Williams, and now I'm doing here. I mean, I gotta dress the part, man. I
Yeah.
gotta I gotta dress to impress.
Exactly. See me, they already know how I dress, so I just come in my typical clothing. When I'm actually at the fights, I do dress different, but anything like this, I'm dressed the same typical way. But what's up, Abe? What's up, Santoya Media? Um, yeah, so let's get into it, man. We spoke a little bit about this because of the uh, your rankings and your year-end ballots that you did. But let's speak a little bit about the Ryan Garcia Luke Campbell fight. I know it was a little bit over a week and a half ago, but it was a great fight to me. I mean, it showed us a lot about Ryan and where he's at and where he's coming to. Um, I spoke to Ricardo Celis, who actually was on the call, and I asked him about how he felt or what he thought when Garcia was dropped, and he said he was stuck. Like he was like, "Oh wow, I can't believe it happened." When he fell from that left hand from Campbell, what was your initial thoughts?
Pretty much the same as everyone. Even Luke Campbell, even he didn't think, even he couldn't believe that he dropped Ryan Garcia. It was very, very shocking, to see how that, because Ryan wasn't like performing badly prior to
Yeah,
the knockdown. But it was a situation where Ryan kind of left his chin up a
hmm
little bit, a little too high, left himself exposed. And it was certainly a little bit of I want to say uncharacteristic, but it was something that you look at Ryan Garcia, you look at a development under Eddie Reynoso, and you would think that that's not something you would do so early in the fight.
yeah,
And that's something that I'm not as concerned uh, as a lot of people are because I mean, look, he left his chin up, and defensively, Ryan's not the best fighter, but I think he's an adequate enough of a boxer that you can't really, you're not going to get bad performances of him. I thought this was a fantastic outing from Ryan Garcia. He showed his toughness. I thought he showed tremendous resiliency in coming back, and to knock out Luke Campbell the way he did was more telling of how good Ryan Garcia can be than anything else. I'm not worried so much about the knockdown. I mean, look, it's boxing. Guys get knocked down
Yeah.
all the time. Not everyone. Guys with the best chins in the world, they sometimes get dropped,
Mm.
and it's not much of an indictment on the fighters. Sometimes it just happens. Guys are punching each other left and right. It's gonna happen. And some of the things that I saw from Ryan that I think he needs to work on if he stands a chance to beat the Devin Haney's, the Gervonta Davis, the Teofimo Lopez, the Lomachenkos of the world, those are things that Eddie Reynoso can fix. Those
Yeah.
are not problems that are, fundamentally flawed to the point that it's rooted inside Ryan and they can't be fixed. I think Ryan can improve. I think he can get a lot better. And he's in his early 20s. He's got time to
Yeah.
improve. I mean, in a way, you can even argue that he hasn't even reached his physical prime, which is shocking.
Yeah.
Really, you can say that a lot about some of these young lightweights that are at the top, that these guys haven't entered their physical prime or just entered their
Yeah.
peak, which it really goes to show how good this division, how good that quartet of fighters are going to be for the next few years.
Exactly. And another name that we throw in there, because he's going to be in there soon, Shakur Stevenson. Another one who's probably not reached that full peak or prime of his career, of grown man strength, as we like to call, because of how young he is. But he's doing things, and as we had on that call with the great Lee Groves when he broke down the statistics, it was. I mean, I've always known that Shakur was good, but I was damn shocked and impressed with the numbers, how it came out of everything. It was like even more eye opening than I thought. So yeah, I mean, you put Haney, Lopez, Lomachenko, Garcia, Shakur Stevenson, and of course, Chris Colbert, other guys that are gonna come up and do some damage as well. It makes that division even better and hotter than what it is right now. But definitely, they're all young kids. I mean, I think is it Davis is the oldest one at 26, I believe.
Wait, who was that? I couldn't quite catch that.
I said Gervonta Davis is the oldest
Oh,
one right now at 26, correct?
yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's weird saying that 26 is the
The
oldest.
oldest, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like the young crop of fighters from 126 to 135. It is so unbelievable. Well, you can even throw in 122.
Yeah,
Angelo Leo, Stephen Fulton, Brandon Figueroa. I mean, those are all young guys in their early to mid 20s. Like
exactly.
that's like that whole crop from those four weight classes is so ridiculously stacked with guys very still relatively early into their boxing careers. That those divisions are going to be stacked for
Yeah,
years and years to come. It's so, and it's fun because we are getting, not even a question where some of these fighters are taking it easy, taking small fights that we all know is not really much of a contest. They're fighting each other. They're
yeah,
fighting each other.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Leo, Stephen Fulton, great fight at 122.
yeah,
Jessica Corrales, I mean, not Jessica Corrales, Chris Colbert, who fought Jessica
yeah,
Corrales, former world champion. He fought him. That was a great step up. And Shakur Stevenson, he wants the big fights already.
yeah, exactly. And we go, as you said, 122 to 135. Let's not forget 140, 147. Jaron Boone Ennis, Virgil Ortiz, and then as you said, the 135ers sooner or later they're gonna move up to 140. And
Mm-hmm.
right there, the top two names is Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Do they stay at 140 or do they move up to 147 and make that division even better? So, and then Arnold Barbosa, 154 Charles Conwell, fighters like that are making these divisions even hotter. I mean, one of the biggest ones, prospect wise, that's taking a gigantic leap is Beck as he takes on Sergey Kovalev on the
Mm-hmm.
30th. That's, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's saying, yeah, let's step up, let's step up. He's like, okay, I'm going to pass up any other contender type fights and I'm going to an ex world champion right now. And those are the things that this new era generation of fighters are doing. Charles Conwell's coming out fighting two undefeated prospects and beating them both extremely convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys coming up don't do that. So I love what I'm seeing. As we said with Virgil Ortiz, he's already said, "Oh, I want to fight this guy, this guy, this guy." He's going to fight an ex-world champion in Maurice Hooker. Jaron Ennis has said he'll fight pretty much anybody. I would love to see him against Keith Thurman. If that was a fight that could be made, I would love to see that fight, just because same way with Beck, it would be passing up over all these other fights and saying, give me an ex-world champion right now. And I think I would make Ennis Boots the favorite in that fight, actually.
Yeah, it is not really an indictment on the other guys, but I mean, Ennis is he is on a completely different level as a prospect. And I don't even like calling him a prospect anymore, because skills-wise, I call him a contender, and I know there's some people that call him a prospect, and I can see why. I just look at him like he passes the eye test with flying colors. Maybe he doesn't have the resume, he doesn't have like the veteran or the names under his resume to warrant contender, the contender label, but you look at his abilities, you look at his overall skill set. I mean, he's arguably top 10 already in the division, just based on skills alone. Resume is a completely different topic, but sooner or later he's going to be able to get those big fights, and I think he's going to look real good once he faces against veterans, guys like at a Keith Thurman level.
Yeah, and as you said, it's not to diss or put anything down on everybody else, because everybody else is also outstanding as a prospect or / contender, but certain guys you put in that contender status because, as you said, they passed the eyeball test. Shakur Stevenson passed that test for me in his first pro fight. I was just like, okay, this kid's legit. He's gonna be real. He's gonna be a threat. Charles Conwell passed that for me many fights ago. As you said, I don't even like calling him a prospect no more. I consider him a contender, which many people put him as prospect of the year for 2020. So it's exciting to me, because we went through a little bit of an era where some fighters were like, oh, well, if he's got the following, if he could do this, if he could do that, we'll fight. And now we got this group where it's like, let's do it. Let's go. Like, I want to fight you. And it's refreshing to see that. As we like to joke around in the chat, we're probably the youngest two people in the chat. So all these guys seen some great fights. We kind of came up through the era of, well, what does he do for me to fight him? But now we're seeing, as you said, Garcia wants Davis, Haney and Lopez, Leo and Fulton, all these fights that really another, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we'd be like, well, hopefully they do it. Hopefully we could see them get in the ring. No, they're going to do it. And I can't wait.
And even if you look sorry to cut you off, but even if you look at it in the UK, I mean, we had Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois, which is an excellent fight on paper between two unbeaten guys who are pretty much at the same level as far as like prospect / contendership status. And that's not a fight. That's the type of fight that I think a lot of fans love to see, because I mean, we mentioned it earlier. I mean, sometimes these fighters, they marinate fights to the point where they just don't happen, or it loses its luster. I mean, when they first discussed Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, I was in high school, and when they finally got the fight done, I was in college. This kind of goes to show how sometimes they sometimes take the marination to an absurd amount. And and here's the thing no one really talks about. If these fights are that good, to a certain extent, it kind of doesn't matter who wins or who loses, because people are going to want to see you fight again.
And look at it, as you just said, it doesn't matter. Garcia got dropped, and there are those idiots that are out there, soft chin, blah, blah, blah. But the rest of us were like, man, that kid showed it. He showed the heart. Yeah. He showed the comeback. And now a lot of people that maybe were looking down at him, that were, he's, Instagram this, Instagram that. Now you're like, no, this kid's a real fighter. Because, sorry to throw this to Victor Ortiz, but when he got hurt against Maidana, his thing was, my face is too pretty to be going through this, blah, blah, blah. Garcia got dropped by a solid shot. And instead of, backing up and saying, okay, let me hug him or whatever, he got up and he fought. And he said, I know when I'm going to get you. And he caught him with that perfect body shot. So it elevated both of them. Actually, a lot of people got so much more respect for Campbell as well, because he came to fight. He didn't come to lay down. He didn't come to play around. He came to fight. So yeah, if it's a great fight, everybody's gonna give him props. And even at that, if you go and risk it, take that fight, as you said, Dubois and Joyce did, you get more respect just for stepping in that ring and doing that and risking that undefeated record, because both of those guys were in line for a possible title shot maybe within 2 or 3 fights. And instead of waiting around and playing the mandatory game, they went for each other, and that's what we love as fans. Real quick, what's up to Marquise, Kyle, Fino Boxing? What's up,
Shout out to
man?
the boys, Marquise.
Yeah, what's up, guys? And yeah, we love talking about all these fights, man. You know, everything that could happen. The fights that are on the schedule that are for sure gonna happen. I have mine that I know my favorite one is, but which is one that you can't wait for, and which is one that you may have a little under the radar that some people may not paying that much attention to.
The one that I'm definitely looking forward to the most, absolutely, it is the Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada rematch.
Well.
I mean, you talk about two super flyweights who are performing admirably. Estrada in a last fight out against Carlos Quadra in a bona fide classic that somehow was even better than the first fight they had.
Yep.
And I didn't think that was possible. And Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez is on this unbelievable comeback run, beating Caliafai, going up against a very stingy and very tough and very game Israel Gonzalez on that same card Estrada and Quadras fought. And you're now getting Estrada and Gonzalez. And the winner of that would have to face Suritsuke Sorum Visai in the late summer, early fall, which is, I mean, for example, let's say Estrada, and obviously this is a very, very fun fight to even speculate on. But if Estrada beats Chocolatito, just imagine that trio of fights to go through.
Yeah.
Quadras, Chocolatito, and Sorum Visai. I mean, that you want to talk about murderer's row? It doesn't get harder than those three, and then you also got on the horizon Kazuto Ioka and Jerwin Ankaz in that division. So super flyweight is at an unprecedented level as far as top guys. Even some of the guys who aren't even champions are ridiculously good. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I think one fight. Funny enough, my answer was a fight that a lot of people were maybe sleeping on a little bit before it got canned. It was going to be Josh Kelly versus David Avanesian, which I thought that was a very, very interesting fight. And now we're starting to learn that fight is maybe the most cursed fight in boxing, because they've now had 3 attempts at making it, and it fell through for whatever reason. 2019, 2020, and now 2021 couldn't get the fight done. But I guess now my new answer might have to be Carl Frampton versus Jamel Herring. That's a really, really interesting fight at 130 pounds. And I know there are a lot of people unfairly criticizing Jamel Herring over the Jonathan Okendo fight, over the way it ended. And for me, I kind of look at it as this. First of all, why do you want to watch more of that fight? That fight was absolutely god awful. But Jamel Herring is the one guy at 130 pounds that, whether it's fair or not, still maybe has a lot of questions left to answer in the eyes of many. Because, I mean, and it's unfair because he's proven time and time again that he is deserving of the title he's holding. I mean, he beat Masayuki Ito in a fight that a lot of people thought Ito was going to win, and Herring
was going to dominate, and Herring dominated.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I thought Ito was going to win that fight, and then Herring handedly won that fight, deserved the title that he holds right now. But to some extent, there's some people that unfairly still have a lot of doubts about him, and I think this is the kind of fight that could answer a lot of people's questions about Jamel Herring. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think Jamel Herring has more than enough proven that he is a top guy at 130 pounds, and we'll see what happens. I think that's a very, very close fight to call, in my opinion. But I'm going to say I think Jamel Herring wins a close decision against Carl Frampton.
I agree with you, and that's also my underrated fight that people see but aren't talking about too much. That's the one. With Herring, I've seen him in person. I want to say 2 times now. Fight. And he also had to fight with Lamont Roach, who was a top contender at 130.
Yeah.
Was handily winning the fight. Was dropped and came back and finished the fight raw. So Herring has answered the questions, but people just love to disrespect him for some reason. Question his toughness, which is idiotic to think about.
That is what it's
a Marine, and you question how tough he is. Like I don't.
Yeah, that is one of the most the conspiracy theories surrounding that fight.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was it was insane. And I certainly never question his toughness. I mean, first of all, if you're a boxer, I find it extremely hard to even question your toughness to begin with. Because
Exactly.
listen, for all the people that criticize guys online, and I don't want to be like the guy, oh, if you never fought, you can't criticize, but at the same time, there are some folks that just loves pointing out all the negatives all the time, but wouldn't even come close to stepping into the ring.
Exactly. And my point on that is they're risking their lives every time they step in that ring, and that's a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way I'm going to ever question someone's toughness, especially someone that's been an ex-Marine that's done so much for the country and has lived through so much personally as Jamel Herring. So, yeah, I mean, when people question his toughness, it was like, it kind of triggered me in a way of like, I know him, I know what he's been through. You can't do that. And again, that fight was not great, and it was more so of Oquendo, who was just dirtying up the fight, making it ugly, making it unwatchable, because Herring was doing well. I mean, he landed the counter punch to put Oquendo down, and was working well until Oquendo just started with his fouls and everything. But yeah, that's definitely a fight. Another one that I was looking forward to, because I felt, as we talk about answering questions, was Gabriel Flores and Andrew Cancio, but that went down with Cancio having to pull out. And again, speaking of cursed, that man has been cursed over the last year with fights falling through. So that was a big fight I was looking forward to for Flores Jr. and Cancio. Flores, I thought I was going to answer a lot of questions about him, because I'm not completely sold on him yet. I believe he has potential, but that fight was going to answer a lot of questions. And Cancio, it was, how does he respond after he had 2 big wins over Machado and then was stopped against Alvarado? How does he respond after so much time off against a kid that many people do believe in and Top Rank has banked on a lot? So that fight was my next one, but it fell through, I believe, a few days ago. So yeah,
go back to the whole point of, like, there are fights that we want to see, and COVID just put the kibosh on all those fights.
Exactly. And Larry, what's up, man? You crazy bastard! He just pointed that the Rat King has not been the same after his girl did him dirty. You may not be wrong, Larry. And yes, we do know about, once you get into a chat room online, no one's safe. We experienced that a few months back when you got us all booted off of a live stream boxing card.
International incident.
Exactly. You almost got us put on list, man. But yeah, so a card that I'm looking forward to is February 13th, Golden Boy's card. With Jojo Diaz defending his title. Sinisa Estrada's on there as well. There's so many good fights on that card that we're learning about now. Which fight on there are you looking more forward to? And also with Golden Boy, after losing Canelo, they're coming back with a vengeance with these fights that they're putting on. So what do you see from that card, and what's the fight you look most forward to there?
I love the Jojo Diaz fight for a myriad of reasons. I think his opponent is a guy that has been kind of overlooked to extent. Obviously, I'm exactly being the kind of fighters that are up to snuff at the world level. We saw plenty of times during the pandemic. But this is a rare occasion where you get a guy in a fight against Jojo Diaz that I would not say is a guaranteed win for Jojo. And there's a lot of the questions, and I want to say questions, but I'm very curious to see now that he's won the title off of Tevin Farmer. I want to see how he now fights as a champion because Rakhimov, he is no slouch. He's got plenty of a couple of good wins, and one of them against Robinson Castellanos, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
And he is, and that is a good win. That is a very good win at 130 pounds, and I think that's a fight that you can definitely look forward to. I think it'll be a fascinating fight. I think we're going to see fireworks. I think we're going to definitely have a very entertaining fight, and I hope whoever comes out of it, I hope they get Tevin Farmer gets another title shot. I really do. It was the fight against Tevin Farmer and Jojo Diaz was a strange one, especially with how Tevin Farmer was after the fight, given all the reports of everything. But hey, hopefully it all kind of sorts itself out. I'm looking forward to that fight. That I'm just worried. That is a fight that I have to admit. I'm worried that something beyond their control just comes in and affects it. That I will admit, that is one of those fights where I think, man, I won't believe the fight is happening until I see both guys in the ring. Yeah. And to kind of go back to you mentioning Seniso Estrada, I don't want to see Seniso Estrada in good fights that don't end in 8 seconds,
Yeah, and again, that fight that she was originally supposed to have fell through for, what we're going through, and last minute replacement, and that video became a viral sensation after that 8-second knockout. But Seniso Estrada has skills, is a legit fighter. I believe will be a world champion, and I'm just excited to see her back in there. But yeah, hopefully it lasts a little bit longer than 8 seconds. Now, if she gets out of there in 8 seconds again or something of that nature, it's just going to show the type of fighter that she truly is. But yeah, with the Jojo Diaz fight, I believe it's a good fight. It's a very solid test for Jojo. It's not a pushover. When I originally spoke to him, I want to say back in June or August, he told me about this fight, and he told me he knew he couldn't overlook his opponent, that he was a strong Russian fighter, but that Jojo was excited for the opportunity to face him. So, and yeah, with the Tevin Farmer fight, I get a lot of people's, Farmer didn't look like what he was supposed to look like, not his typical self, but I attribute that a lot to what Jojo did, because I spoke to Jojo in the weeks and months leading up to that fight, and there was just something different about him the whole time. Like, he was focused, locked in, and probably about three weeks before the fight, the last time I spoke to him, he told me, he goes, I'll bring this belt home, no questions asked. And I believed him, and then, even with that cut he suffered, he dominated that fight and took Tevin completely out of his game and won it with ease. So I believe it was more of what Jojo did than what Tevin didn't normally do. Jojo just took over the fight, got in there, and took away his game plan. If they were to fight again,
we don't.
I think it would be closer, but Jojo still wins the fight.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think Jojo wins that fight, but I think it'll be a much better fight in the second go around. And we didn't really talk about much about Jojo when we were discussing young guys from 122 to 135. Jojo is another guy who has really, really improved, and I gotta say, he has impressed me a lot at times, especially after he lost to Gary Russell Jr. It was one of those cases where I kind of looked at a guy and I thought, he lost the world title fight, but he's gonna get better because he got into that ring with a guy of Gary Russell Jr.'s level. And there are guys. Some people like to criticize guys after they suffered their first loss, but there are guys who do get better even in defeat.
Yep.
I think Jojo is another guy. He's maybe not looked upon as like a top 3 fighter at 130, but that's more because that division is stacked. Mm-hmm. You got Gervonta Davis, you got Miguel Burchelt, you got Jamel Herring, you got guys like Shakur Stevenson waiting in the wings. It's a very loaded division, but Jojo Diaz does deserve to be in the conversation as one of the best fighters at 130 pounds.
Definitely, and he's earned it. As you said, he got better from his defeat. And also, what other fighters were calling for Gary Russell? Not one fighter was asking to fight Gary Russell Jr. And JoJo asked for that fight, I believe, for a year. And he suffered a loss, but he asked for the fight, and he performed well. Actually, I mean, he won some rounds
Yeah.
in there. He gave Russell some problems. He was in that fight for a long time. But now, let's say they fight again. I wouldn't put it past him that JoJo could beat him, especially with the inactivity of Gary Russell. JoJo learned so much
Mhm.
from that fight, improved so much, and has looked like, as you said, a top three 130 pounder. Um, I wouldn't put anybody past him to lose. I mean, Miguel Berchelt, I could see ways that JoJo could beat him. Berchelt does have the power, but I could see him beating him. Him and Herring, I think that would be the fight at 130 that intrigues me the most because of the styles, the friendship, and everything else. They know each other so well that it would make the fight even better. The Berchelt one, yeah, we know how good he is. Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, yeah, but those two, they know each other since amateur days. They pretty much grew up with each other there. So that would make that fight that much more intriguing. And both of them have said they would be really interested in the fight. That just the money has to be right because of the type of friends that they are. I mean, they both told me they're like brothers. So I would just love to see it just because it's one of those fights that it will bring so much because of how well they know each other. If it was to ever happen, I doubt that it happens. Jamel's probably going to move up to 135 at some point. Um, JoJo will probably move up as well, but I know he wants to at least pick up another title at 130, and he might have the chance now with Roger Gutierrez picking up the belt on the Ryan Garcia card. So that would be a good fight that I'd be looking forward to as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of yeah. Roger Gutierrez is also another guy at 130 that is very very good, and Rene Alvarado, another
Yeah,
guy who he may have lost the fight, but he outboxed Roger Gutierrez for most of the fight. It's just that when you get dropped three times, it's
it's
kind
hard.
of hard, almost impossible to win a decision when you
Exactly.
get dropped three times.
And think about it. Gutierrez needed that third knockdown to secure the fight, even
Yeah.
yet. So that just shows how good Alvarado performed in that fight. So definitely. And Kyle, yes, we don't know if Russell got better after the Loma loss since he only fights once a year. But yeah, man. So one of the last things I want to talk about here is this one to me. This fight, it's going to be done probably maybe late April, early May. Is the 140-pound supremacy fight coming up between Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Um, I know Jose to an extent pretty well. He's from my same area that I live in. Josh Taylor, I've watched him fight essentially every fight, even though he's over in over the pond. It's a real close fight to me, but to a lot of people, I feel like they're just missing Jose off of his last performance. When you look
Mhm.
at that fight, how do you see that fight going, and who would be your favorite right now?
Right now, my favorite would be Josh Taylor. I think his body work and I think his overall pressure and aggression will be very, very difficult to overcome. I'm not gonna say that the Victor Postol fight made me sour on Jose Ramirez a little bit, but you do have to question that, Jose Ramirez, this is not the first time he's fought in very, very close fights. And to a certain extent, it does help getting that experience being in close fights. But I look at what Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez can bring to the table. First of all, it's a very, very close fight. It's one of those fights where I will say I think Josh Taylor wins. I have no confidence at all in making that pick. It's one of those fights where it's virtually a toss up. I think Josh Taylor. I think overall the body work might be the difference maker. I could totally see it being a 7-5. Hell, it could even be a 6-6 fight
Mm-hmm.
if there's no knockdowns. It could easily end in a draw. That's how close this fight is.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. It's just so close, especially with the type of styles that they have. The Postal fight, I get it. Taylor looked better than what Ramirez did, but I look at Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor. Taylor is used
Mhm.
to really bullying a lot of the fighters he's in with, and he's really great on the inside. But which fighter can we say that he's fought that has an inside game comparable to his, or possibly better.
Mm.
Not really anybody. Prograis is good inside, but he's a much better, boxer fighter that'll break you down and beat you up. Jose Ramirez, on the other hand, his style is pressure, and once he gets inside, I mean, we see what he did to Mike Reed. We've seen what he did to Maurice Hooker. Once he gets inside and gets in that rhythm, it's hard to get him out of there. So that's
We said we with Amir Khan in the Amir
exactly.
Khan fight.
Yeah, once he gets inside and he's on, he's on. And Taylor hasn't fought a fighter to that level. Now, let's say they fight and Taylor takes what Jose brings on the inside, then hey, he's even better than what we thought. But it's exactly that. It's that close of a fight to where I need to see what Taylor's gonna do when Jose's inside and starts working him the way Taylor has worked other opponents. Same thing.
Yeah, and you look at both guys. Both guys have been in some very, very tough fights.
Yep.
Taylor had to real tough fight against Jose Ramirez, not Jose Ramirez, Regis Prograis.
Yep.
And Jose Ramirez had not just a fight against Victor Postal. He fought Jose Zepeda in a very, very close in California.
Yeah, I was right there.
Zepeda won, and Mike, and how much has that win
improved?
Aged? Yeah, that win really, really aged very, very well after Zepeda beat Ivan Baranchik.
Yeah, I had it 7-5 from ringside. It was really close, but I feel Jose won the last 3 rounds with his work, the pressure that he put on to pull that fight out. But it was a great fight. And now, exactly after that, after the 2 wins that Zepeda pulled off over the summer, you think, damn, you know what? That win wasn't as bad as most people thought it was. Now it's, he pulled off that win? That's pretty good, because now you could actually say that Zepeda's maybe a top 4, top 5 140-pounder, possibly number 3 behind Ramirez and Josh Taylor. But then, as we talked about earlier, Arnold Barbosa, you got to put him in there as well now. Teofimo, once he makes the jump to 140. But to me, as you said, it's a close fight. I could see Jose pulling it off just because I think, to me, it's Jose performs better in the biggest moments, in the biggest fights. When he got his title shot, he dominated Iman. When he went to Hooker's hometown, he didn't dominate, but he put on a hell of a performance and stopped Hooker with the barrage that it was so fast that it was like legit. If you went out to get something to drink real quick and came back, you're like, what happened? And then you see how quickly he stopped him. You're like, oh, damn. Taylor has looked good.
It was a legit blink and you missed it type of thing.
And Taylor has looked good throughout his career and has been in tough fights. But I still need to see what he's going to do when Jose gets inside and starts working him as well. Also, when Jose goes to the body, because he has body shots as well that could hurt anybody. So, to me, that's the fight I'm looking forward to the most out of the year so far, even above Fury and Joshua and all the other ones. They're great fights, but that one, it's unification. It might legitimately give us another pound-for-pound superstar, because he would have essentially wiped out 140 and jumped to 147.
Yeah, it's hard to make a case against putting the winner of that fight in the top 10 pound for pound, just because, as you mentioned, would clean out the division that has really done a fantastic job in restocking since the departure of Terrence Crawford when he became undisputed champion in 2017 when he fought Julius Ndongo.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, I know there are some people that already have either Ramirez or Taylor in their top 10.
Yeah.
So it goes to show, I mean, the top 10 pound for pound, I mean, no matter how you have it, it just goes to show how ridiculously stacked it is today.
Yeah.
With there are about 20 guys you can legitimately make a case to be in the top 10. Both Taylor and Ramirez are 2 of them.
Yeah. I always tell people when they ask me for my top 10 list, it probably switches week to week, because I'm like, oh man, you know what? This guy, okay, well, I can't leave him out. Oh, okay, well, let's put. So that's why I'm like, you know what? I don't know today, but definitely if whoever comes out of there, it'd be hard to say they don't deserve to be at least top 10 without a doubt. So I can't wait for that fight. And the first part of the year so far for boxing, starting next weekend, looks pretty damn good. And it's, as I said, it's going to be about a good 2 months of consistent boxing cards that I'm looking forward to, and I know you're looking forward to. And looks like we're going to be extremely busy coming up for the next 2 months.
Yep. Ah, man, I cannot wait for
Yep.
it. I really can't wait for this.
Me either. So again, man, thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Early Wednesday show. Carlos, before we go ahead and let everybody know where to follow you and where to check out your YouTube as well.
You can follow me on Twitter at Carlos Toro Media. Same name on YouTube, where I post a bunch of interviews, press conferences, and lots of boxing content there. And even a little bit of boxing video game content where I stream myself playing Punch Out, and I was absolutely god awful. I am not good at Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and it was pretty evident there. And you can also read my work at carlostoromedia.com and also at fightgamemedia.com, where I do some written content there, as well as a podcast over on the Fight Game Media Patreon. So yeah, you'll see me in plenty of places covering boxing in some way, shape, or form.
Perfect. And to everybody that tuned in, thank you guys for tuning in. To everybody from our boxing chat that we speak with on Friday evenings, thank you guys all have a good day. Again, it's Mike Reda, host of 26 Sports, today with my good friend Carlos Toro. We'll speak with you guys next week. I believe I'm going to have another good friend of ours, Marquise Johns, next week. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll speak again soon, guys.